I like coffee. I like coffee a lot. And I also love all sorts of meat sandwiches. I also need to be able to properly function in the mornings, courtesy of my terrible sleeping habits. So I'm not against getting it from whatever source is the most convenient. Starbucks coffee isn't the best, but it's there. Now imagine the Philippines. Then imagine one of the many provinces in the Philippines. And then imagine a tiny little agricultural town in one of those tiny provinces with just enough malls and food chains for some rich Caucasians to seriously consider it as a retirement spot. Now imagine a strip mall, which was of a size where you could barely even call it a strip mall. And then imagine an even tinier Starbucks. That was my Starbucks. When the Starbucks in my town opened, I almost immediately designated it as my spot. There was a Starbucks in the next city over, and was in fact only a 15-minute drive away. But they had once given me a mango passion fruit frappe when I'd bought a cappuccino, so I didn't really like going there often. Besides, this Starbucks was a lot nearer, right outside of my subdivision. I still needed to drive to get there, but 5 versus 15 minutes behind the wheel is a huge difference. It was also a lot quieter, and I made it a point to always leave good tips in the tip jar and get to know the baristas. These baristas never burned my coffee, never put in too much whipped cream, and the place had the best sandwiches of any Starbucks I have ever been to. I liked to get up, and by 7 a.m. I would be all alone in that Starbucks. I would drink the first batch of the prepared coffee, eat the newly warmed pastries, take out my laptop, and write. It was quiet, and I loved it. The manager had good taste in music, too. All classical, all calming. Stuff that could easily fade into the background. I had ordered a white chocolate frappe that morning, and then immediately realized I hated white chocolate. Still, I paid for it, so I was gonna drink it. My usual seat was behind the glass shelf where they displayed the assortment of Starbucks brand mugs and bottles. If I turned my head, I could directly see the cashier and the people lining up to order through the mugs and bottles. I liked it there. There was an outlet right underneath the shelf, where I liked to plug in my laptop or charge my phone if I'd forgotten to charge it. That day, I was feeling lethargic, as usual, having slept only 5 hours. The white chocolate frappe helped, as it was too hot and made me wince in disgust when I tasted it. I was scrolling through my phone instead of using my perfectly functioning laptop, and then he walked in. If there is a male version of a Karen, he was it. But honestly, he was much worse. Baggy pants, an angry frown on his face, and was at that point in a boomer's life where he felt like every single younger person around him owed him something. He took the newspaper off the rack, read it for a few seconds, and then cursed. He waddled his way in front of the cashier and threw it down in front of her. What followed was the most awkward several minutes of my career as a Starbucks customer.
This isn't today's newspaper.
I apologize, sir. We haven't received today's.
It's wrong!
He picked it up again and threw it at her. She curled backwards in a shocked flinch. The security guard was looking tense, and I saw his fingers hesitantly curl around his standard issue baton. This guy was really worked up over not getting his newspaper. The sound of an adult male screaming in anger inside such a small place had me automatically freezing and curling into myself out of instinct. I was so glad I wasn't the girl behind the counter. He continued yelling at her for several minutes over the newspaper. The guard was getting agitated now, and he made a motion I couldn't see toward the poor barista. In the end, the man had stopped screaming and ordered a tall Americano. And, of course, not without making several threats if the barista dared get his order wrong. I flinched when he took the seat next to mine. I was wearing shorts that day, and one of those stretchy H&M V-neck t-shirts. Apparently, that was an invitation, so of course he put his eyes on me, watching me as he drank his coffee. The same barista came, and then offered me one of their free pastry samples. I just shook my head, not wanting to move or draw any more attention toward myself with the way that asshole was watching me. She just shrugged and offered the tray to him next. He took one without a word, still watching me. I could barely type. That's how nervous and self-conscious I was. I was already reworking my entire schedule in my head to figure out the best time to avoid this creep. The creep began to cough. The droplets of his saliva hitting my laptop screen had me immediately getting up to go to the bathroom. I wondered if I could feasibly hide out for an hour or two in there without pissing anyone off too much. I did my business and then opened the door. The sound of the man's angry yelling immediately had me closing it again. I stood by the door, only leaving it open a crack, waiting for him to calm down so I could get out. The man's angry yells faded out, and I nearly opened the door before I heard him start to whimper. He screamed again, and I slammed the door shut, my back pressed against it. My hands fiddled on the lock. The scream wasn't angry. It was more pained. There was also the distinct sound of loud, messy chewing. I swallowed hard and opened the door, something telling me to get out of that Starbucks as fast as humanly possible. I got back to my seat to find that the place was still empty, and now completely silent. In a daze, I went back to my seat to find that my neighbor was no longer there. I sat back down, relieved. The barista came back again, her lip gloss slightly smeared on the corner of her mouth.
Would you like a free sample of our new sandwiches, ma'am?
I looked at the tray of meat sandwiches, noticing that the filling looked suspiciously red. The tip of what looked like a pinky finger stuck out of one. Well, I was pretty hungry. I smiled at her, took one of the sandwiches, and ate it. Best damn sandwich I ever had.